Welcome back to Deconstructed. We're here for episode 6. We're going to be talking about NIP today. I'm your host, Sam Animo Mackenzie. With me, as always, Harry Nero Richards. How you doing today, Harry?
I'm doing good. Back home for the first time in a long time. Well, apart from last week. But you're off somewhere new, of course. Got to keep the bit going.
Got to keep the bit going. We'll never be in the same location twice, I guess. But yeah, so let's talk about NIP. I don't really know with NIP, but we'll get going with where the roster's at now. So it's still kind of a new roster. It's kind of settled now. There's still debates as to, what does the future hold if someone like Hampus tries to come back? Because obviously Hampus can be a very impactful player. So it's in a bit of a weird place. You've got Aleksib, IGL, Head Trick, very inexperienced AWPer, 3 typically aggressive riflers that maybe on paper look strange to fit together. So as a starting point, before we go into any details, what's your initial thoughts on NIP? Like, if you just look at the team, what's your feelings?
It's a bit of a nothing team, really, isn't it? Don't you think? It's this collection of the Mouse, OG, NIP. Like, it's okay. I accept it. CS is international now. Like, this is just the type of top 20, sometimes top 10. Has a few good events a year. Like, it's just they're just kind of there. They're just kind of there. They're not a team anyone's looking at to win trophies. They're like a playoffs run. They're pretty happy with. Like, I don't know. That's sort of the thing. It's like they've gone international, but they're still trying to find their place, and it's very hard to crack into the top 5, top 6 without a shit ton of money. And even if you have a shit ton of money, it's still not easy. It's like they've got some good pieces, but you can see the difference between them and like the FaZe and the G2s. Like, that's the blueprint for international teams. Like, okay, you lose a bit of comms, but then you have the firepower, and then when you're an international team without the firepower, you end up looking like NIP and looking like OG and Mouse and teams like that, like with sort of a hard cap on them. But I don't know. What do you think of NIP?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could see by the intro that was potentially lackluster compared to the other teams we've done. I feel nothing for that organisation, but disdain. I don't like the org one bit. I don't like elements of this team, as we'll get into. I'm actually quite high on a single element, as I alluded to in the previous episode, but we'll get to all of that. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think, we've spoke about a couple of these teams in the last episode, the Mouse and OG. That part of the CS world to me is just the most boring part. Like, there's the top 5 teams in the world, and they're really fucking fun to watch. They're the elite teams. They're great when they're cooking. They cooking. You've then got, like, for me, I've now gained a little bit more of an appreciation of tier 2. We've always been very hard on tier 2, but like, there was a lot of teams I had a lot of fun watching the past few weeks. I really liked watching Game Illusion. I really liked watching Apex. Monty, not so much, but I think Warrior 2K is hilarious. There's just something about him that makes me giggle every time he gets a clutch. So there's these two zones, and then there's just this fucking horrible middle ground, which is, Fnatic, Mouse, OG, sometimes Ents, NIP, Furia, like all these teams, man, just fuck off. Because if it wasn't franchise, we wouldn't fucking see any of them. But anyway, we'll move off the hate train for a moment, and we'll try and look at this team in a positive light. So, I've got the quote here, which I'll get up now. But I interviewed Aleksib before the challenger stage, and I said to him then, like, the roster looks now like it's probably settled. Like, where do you think you guys are at as a team? Are you looking at already pushing that top 10, maybe pushing that top 5? And he said, considering the fact we are not at IEM Dallas or Blast finals, I want us to treat this as the last stepping stone before the next season. Even though it's the major, even if it was any other tournament, I would want to treat it the same way. We have had some time with the team now. We've had some obstacles and tournaments where we've gained some experience. I think now we can actually reach some of the potential we can show, and we can actually do well. But again, it's up to us to show it now. Anything can happen, right? And to me, that very much came across like an Aleksib that was saying, look, if we go far, yeah, kind of cool, right? But maybe we're not at that point yet, and maybe, next season is where you see them do better. Maybe we get to Cologne and they're in the playoffs in Cologne. So now the roster is settled. Like, I guess my question would be, do you think they have the possibility to grow as a team?
I mean, it's hard to see that happening. I think you need either Hedrick to carry on and just be a superstar, which is it's not completely out of the question. We'll get to him later, or you need consistency from one of the 3 most inconsistent riflers in the world, just all on the same team in Res, Brollan, and Config, and then, or you just need an Aleksib IGL carry job. The team needs to be Aleksib's team, just following everything. That's the blueprint events, right? His OG team as well seemed to do much better when it was just built in his image, just his team completely. And as soon as maybe people started questioning him, they just struggled. I think if they want to be in the playoffs of a Cologne, I think they've had long enough. Honestly, you mentioned that they feel like a new team, but it's been since January. Config joined January. All the lads, we played all the lads together. I think it was end of January. Config and Hedrick. Pretty sure. Maybe they missed Blast Spring groups.
Config was after, right? Maybe not.
Config joined after Blast Spring groups, I think.
Oh, right. Did they only play spring groups with Hampus? Fair.
I think they played it with Max, didn't they? To be honest. But anyway, the point is, 5 months is, 4 months probably. 4 months, 4 good lands. You've probably seen the ceiling of a 5-man lineup, unless something crazy happens. I just don't really like that narrative from Aleksib. He said it to me at the RMR as well. I just don't really love the idea that, we're just going to keep working hard and then one day something's going to happen. That's just, I know it's of course he's got to say that in an interview. He's not going to be yeah, we're just a mid-team getting paychecks, just kind of happy. I know he's got to say it, but come on, where is this going to come from? Where?
Well, so I'm gonna go the opposite side from you and say that I quite like it from Aleksib. You get all these players fucking major in whatever tournament, and they're like, yeah, no, we're here to fucking win it. Snappy said it. I mean, I've got a lot of time for Snappy. I think Snappy's a great IGL. But as much as I really admired his confidence when he said it to me, I couldn't hide my fucking shock when he said, yeah, I think we can win the major. Of course you can, but it's not realistic, is it? Whereas I think Aleksib's realistic outlook on this NIP team actually might serve as one of the team's positives. If they're looking at it and it's okay, we can continue to try and grow as a team. There's a new game that might shake up the meta. If they're looking at it as Hedrick is 18, very young, however old he is, he's still new to the AWP role. Let's not forget that he took up AWPing when Monacy departed Navi Junior. If they're looking at it from the point that they had these 3 riflers who maybe now are having to go into different roles that they're not used to, and there is a lot of growth room, is it not fair to look at it and be 4 months, maybe that isn't enough time to have grown and learned?
Okay, it's not ages. It's just, I think that there can still be improvement. I just think maybe it's not going to be a rapid improvement. They can go to maybe how good Mouse were at the end of 2022, that kind of ceiling, scary against the top teams, punching above their weight, but they will always be punching above their weight, and eventually, the teams with more firepower, more money, better IGLs will just eventually come over. And I don't think Aleksib's a bad IGL. I don't think he's the type of IGL that can take quite a weak team in terms of firepower to the top. I don't think that can happen again.
Well, so it seems like a good point to then move into Aleksib. I'm sure we have potentially differing opinions on Aleksib. We have differing opinions on most things in the world. But I'll start off a discussion on Aleksib with the thoughts of our good friend Aziesk, who believes that Aleksib will always do better with a worse team, that he was always doomed to fail at G2, but with a team with lesser pieces, like NiP, that's where Aleksib kind of thrives. So, what about that before you share your, I suppose, lovely opinions on Aleksib B as an IGL?
Well, I think I'm higher on Aleksib than most people, probably, honestly. Like,
I did say
most people, yeah, I think he's really good. I think you can see in interviews, you can see in the way his teams play, like you can see there's method there, right? And yeah, maybe it is better because it's like the thing with G2 is I think people are overplaying the whole like Aleksib was so bad for G2, like blah blah blah, micromanagement. I don't think he was micromanaging. Like what I think happened is m0NESY had 6 months of LAN experience and suddenly felt confident enough to call his own plays. Like that is generally all I think happened. I don't think HooXi's some mastermind that coached m0NESY into being amazing. I think m0NESY just needed a bit of time, and Aleksib B sort of caught the brunt of it. I think JKS was a huge upgrade on Jax, and I think m0NESY got experience. I don't think Aleksib's stint in G2 deserved to be looked at as negatively as it is. I think if he had more time and he had JKS for Jax, then you never know what could have happened. But I think obviously there's some stylistic clashes. Like you think of Aleksib as kind of the tactical IGL, and he's been criticized for that in NiP as well by his own players. With that Config interview where they lost, and then Config just said straight up, went to HW and just said, we trusted the strat book more than the players, and that probably sums up why people think Aleksib B isn't this like Megamind IGL, because you look at all the other international teams, they've got loose systems, all of them, and I think Aleksib B's tried to do that at times in OG and this NiP team. Like this NiP team is pretty loose, honestly. Most of the time, I think that was just a special circumstance or whatever. So that's I flip flop on him, which Elliot will love to hear. Like I'm always flip flopping, but I do think Aleksib B is a good enough IGL that it's just that he's never going to be S tier. Do you know what I mean? Like he's like top of A tier IGLs, and there's not many S tier IGLs. Like it's not a slight on him to say he's not a Cadian, not a Carrigan. Like he's just that tier below, I think, and that is good enough. Like I think NiP would. Some people want Hampus back as IGL. I think I probably disagree with that. I'd rather have Aleksib B IGLing. I think he's shown enough in his career to stay in this team and get a chance to. Like again, I don't love the narrative of like, oh, we just need more time. I don't love that, but I do at the same time I do think he deserves it to build the team in his image. Whether that's the same 5 players, probably not. Honestly, like I don't think they can break through the glass ceiling with these 5 players, but I think you'd keep Aleksib B. I think he's one of the pieces I'd keep.
I mean, look, yeah, okay, like we'll kind of have to weave away from the little plan we made before. I'm not convinced with Aleksib B that if this team fails to succeed, that it's not somewhat on him. However, as we'll get to with the Riflers in a little bit, it's also probably likely to do with them. So yeah, I'm without delving into that yet, I am quite inclined to agree that he is one of the elements that you keep. I think Aleksib, you're probably right. G2 very unfair. But there's a lot of talk about Aleksib, about whether he failed upwards, and potentially he did with G2, right? Like NiP definitely not. NiP's taken the step down again. I just think with Aleksib B, he's proved he's an IGL. Like that's a certainty. He's just maybe not proved that he's a. mean, you kind of said it as well, but he's not proved that he's anything special as an IGL. He's kind of riding off a couple of decent runs when, you know, he first came through events. I don't think there's anything like amazing about him.
And yeah, and it's kind of harsh, but then you look at the team's map pool, for example, like you look at, so I think it was, so Ancient, they're 2-7 on in 2023 with a top 30 filter on, like 2-7, so like basically they just lose Ancient every time they play it. And then Inferno, 2-8. So they've got two maps that they play quite a lot because people punish pick a lot. Like, not a lot of people's permabans, Ancient and Inferno. Like, they're like the two maps that basically everyone plays, and they're terrible at both of them. Like, you just can't start series 1-0 down, like, again and again. They're only really good at Mirage. Like, they've got a good record on Nuke, but they've barely played it, honestly. Like, Mirage, they pick Mirage every time. They normally win it. Like, they're very good at Mirage. Fair enough. But there's just no depth there. And, like, I think that's probably what he means when he's talking about needing more time, is that they don't have like this deep playbook that he wants to rely on. Like, they do end up relying on firepower, and it's just not there. And it's just not there. And it's, you can say partly that's Aleksib's fault. Like, he should be, like, it's always this thing with IGLs. It's so hard to evaluate IGLs from outside because you don't hear the comms, you don't know who called the mid round, you don't know lots of things. But you do know that ultimately the buck falls with them. And if the players aren't performing, and the players are people who people think are good enough to perform, then at some point it is the IGL's fault. Like, you can't escape that if you're an IGL. Like, it's cutthroat business.
Yeah, I agree. And I think only time will tell with Aleksib on this roster. I think if they stay at this level, if they don't grow, then I think seeing who the first player to leave will be a very telling thing for this roster, because I'm not sure anyone on this roster has any loyalties to anyone to keep someone around who isn't deserving of it. But let's move on to someone who I think definitely will be a part of this organization for a long time. Let's talk about Hedrick, right? So as we said before, he's a new AWPer, and you know, you already alluded to the fact that m0NESY, when Aleksib had m0NESY, he had very little experience. He didn't know how to play certain maps. Like, I don't know if anyone wants to go and watch a m0NESY nuke demo from just over a year ago to a m0NESY nuke demo now, you will see a very poor player compared to a very good player. m0NESY had no understanding of where to be on that map, and now he's pretty good at nuke. Aleksib said in an interview again that Hedrick is already starting to make those calls for himself, to make those plays for himself, and you can see being in an environment with Hedrick. I don't know whether you spoke to him at all. I did a couple of interviews with him. The guy is incredibly mature for however old he is, 18, 17, whatever the fuck it is. He's incredibly mature, and so Ukrainian players, they tend to be some of the more difficult to interview. I think it's fair to say, like Ukrainians
and
and
teammates.
Russians, yeah, their English is typically very broken. You get very few words out of them. Not Hedrick. Hedrick is fucking phenomenal, and I think that actually says a lot for him as an element of this team. But I think what we should talk about more is his performances so far. I think they've been very up and down, but at the major, we began to see potential of what Hedrick could be, right? So, as I said last week, I think Hedrick will be a top 5 AWPer in CS2. I think the bloke's going to be really fucking good. But, you know, what's your take on Hedrick, both as an AWPer and as a piece in this team?
Yeah, I think he's already come a really long way, right? Like, you remember that Blade interview when he stood in for Navi and was pretty dog shit rifling. I think Blade literally said, like, he's just not ready for Tier 1. And that's not long ago. Like, that was what, like October last year? Like, he's
Yeah,
come a huge way. He's come a huge way in a very short space of time. Like, he was not a slam dunk of a transfer. Like he's not he wasn't a guaranteed thing. Like you said, like he was basically a rifler for most of his career. Up until that point. So yeah, I think he's just done more than what you could have possibly asked for. Like, he's been this team's best player really of late. Like at Rio, at the major, like he's just been their best player, and that's what you need from Europa. Like, you can point to a lot of things in this team, and Hedrick is not one of them. Like, sometimes when you're in front of their booth, like he's definitely a tilter. Like, not a rager, but he will like tilt it himself a lot. Like, he kind of needs someone to pick him up, and it feels like people in NIP don't really. Like, there's that corner where it's like it's config, then Hedrick, then Aleksib, and it's like config rages, and then Hedrick is like annoyed at something, and Alexi's just talking in his normal monotone voice, just like nothing. Like, if you stick Hedrick on a team with like maybe one of those more emotive IGLs, I don't know if it'd be better or worse, because I think what Aleksib seems to be doing with Hedrick is, when Hedrick does do that, like, he just leaves him to it. Like, he just doesn't care. Like, just no one's going to listen to you moaning. Just get over it yourself. Like, that seems to be the approach. I don't know if it's the perfect approach, but it's an approach. And it's just that, like you say, he is very mature, and that is going to happen. Like, he's a young AWPer. Like, he expects a lot from himself, and he is definitely not the problem with this team. And that's the biggest compliment you can pay to him, honestly.
No,
for an 18-year-old kid.
Like, he's not the problem with this team, and I've already said I'm quite high on the kid, right? But like, I'm honestly fucking surprised. I didn't think he was gonna completely suck dick. I didn't think he was gonna be Torzi. I didn't think he was gonna be Nikados. Like, I did think he'd be okay. Like, those two are just bad, right? They're just fucking bad. I thought Hedrick would be okay. I think now we're looking at Hedrick as being like, okay, you're a good AWPer. You're not an elite AWPer yet. You're not getting there. But there's definitely potential where he could be. And I am very pleasantly surprised to see that, because I don't think I 6 months ago would have seen that happening in the slightest.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely.
So I think then is where we move into the maybe more negative sides of this roster, right? We've both said we keep the IGL. He's a good bloke. He's probably doing his job. We keep the AWPer. He's got potential. He's a nice kid. Ooh, it's a shame that Counter-Strike isn't a 2v2 game then, isn't it? Because fuck me, this is where the problems lie. So let's first talk about fucking no, man, they're all shit. Let's talk about Res first, right? Res has the best T-side rating. It's not a fucking great rating, but it's the best of them.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, typically an aggressive player. He's been moved into more passive lurking roles. It seems to be giving him maybe a bit more consistency than he's had. Like, this is the thing with Res, right? Res has been on NIP for a fucking long time.
6 years, nearly, I think.
And for the first 4 years, I quite liked Res. I thought Res was a decent little player. And then I maybe watched NIP a bit more. Maybe because a certain Dane who quite likes the AWP joined them. And I realised, Res, he's not that guy. He's not that guy. He's very inconsistent, and maybe you could say that was because of the role. But
it's been 6 years, mate. I don't think you can blame the role.
It really is just he's just an inconsistent player. But like, I don't know. Should we expect more from Res?
You just can't. As soon as you expect more from any of these free riflers, as soon as you think, oh, okay, he's going to be the star player now, they'll just drop off a cliff. They just all do it. None of them can be relied upon, and it must be so hard to call around something like that. Like, just not knowing who your star player is, not knowing who you can, like, if you're calling around a play, like, not knowing who to say yes to if they all want to do something. Like it's, And I think Res is a tricky one because you see the mechanics and players like him are the argument. Like they just prove that CS is so much more than mechanics. I think honestly, like him and Bit, very similar in my head. Like they both just when they're on form, when they're like just shooting loads of people, they just look unreal. But over a larger sample size, they just do always like just slightly drop off. And it's hard to see because he was supposed to be the Swedish star. Like okay, NIP kept their core 4 members, kind of killed their scene a bit, VP Poland style. Like, but Res did come out of it. Res did kind of survive in a scene that was quite hard to survive in, and he was supposed to be he was supposed to be like the franchise boy for NIP, and he just isn't. And this isn't to say he's a bad player. Like he's a good player, but
he's an okay player.
He's not a. He is a good player, especially like honestly, this year he's been the best of the free riflers by like quite a way in my mind at least.
Yeah, we can.
And yes, he's like
I'd be second best. So
I've seen you play. I'd calm down on that one, but
all right,
maybe Dickel, but no, and that's the thing with Rez. It's you just can't rely on him, and that's just kind of a shame.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Like I still like Rez. He's not that guy, but I still like Rez. Like he's a fun little player when he's on.
Very good at the major, by the way.
Yeah,
but...
and maybe this role change does something for him.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't like super aggressive before, right? Like I don't know if it's not like a drastic role change, honestly. Like he was never like 30% opening kill attempts. Yes, he's a lurker now, and he used to have like some pack rolls like at times in his 6-year stint of mid. But like I don't think the role change is anything crazy, honestly. He's still got all his spots on CT side basically.
Yeah,
like he's fine. Like he should be cooking, but
yeah, he's just not that guy. But let's talk about a player who's definitely not that guy yet. Everyone in the scene seems to think he fucking is, because people are still convinced he's a fucking even okay player when he's complete shit. Brollan.
Harsh. We're doing harsh. We're doing harsh.
No. That ain't harsh. You know, just as much as I know, Brollan has no business being on a tier 1 team. He is not good. And he was still only okay when he was good and the SG was in his hands. Like, let's not fuck about here.
Yeah. It's another player that proves my favorite theory of just because you're good at 18 doesn't mean you're going to be better when you're 22. Like, it's just a fallacy. It's a complete fallacy. Like, he's not improved at all. Like, he's if anything, he's declined.
He's probably gotten worse. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely declined. Like, even when NIP signed him, do you not remember, like, Swedish super team, like, blah, 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 blah. And then what? Like, nothing. He's not kicked on at all. And you know what? Like, he's in a team with config, and he's the more aggressive one. Like, he is definitely said to Aleksib, said to DJL, said to someone at NIP, like, I want to be the aggressive guy. And if you're gonna, take config out of his comfort zone, like, you got to put up something. Like, I've got my thoughts on config as well. I've got my thoughts on just aggressive riflers generally. Like, I think they're all kind of inflated, honestly. But yeah, he just can't put up the numbers. And he is doing a lot of entry work. Like, fine. You're doing a lot of entry work. It's hard. It's very hard.
So did I, and I was
he's got quite
here at the major. So
well, he's okay. Not quite the same amount of entry work, but yeah, but then he has hard spots on CT side. He does a lot of big site anchoring. Like, it's not as egregious as maybe you're making it sound, but it is pretty bad that he's just, they spent a lot of money to get him out of Fnatic, like a lot of money, and he's just been fine.
Well, no, that's
less
why
than fine.
That's why it's fucking egregious, right? Like, they spent all this fucking money on him. He's meant to be this big fucking star for Sweden. Maybe it's meant to be him and Rez. Maybe the dream was always that him and Rez were on a team because they were the two younger stars of Sweden. And he like, he's not worth the money they paid for him. He's not worth being on that team when, we've just watched a ton of tier 2 players who can perform better on international teams. Like, look, I want Rez to be really good. I want Brollan to be really good because, as we've said, international teams, yeah, that's the way it is right now. Let's not pretend that CS wouldn't be better with national teams. Let's not pretend it isn't better if the French scene is better, if the fucking Swedish scene isn't better. It's fucking better for Counter-Strike if that's the way, because Counter-Strike will get more tactical again. And it doesn't matter if, most fucking plebs like to watch someone run round the corner, shoot someone in the face and go, "Oh, that looked cool." Like, Counter-Strike is a tactical game. So of course it's better if these teams are national. Look at fucking Heroic. Look at why they're so good, right? It is better. That is why Brollan aggravates me so much. Because maybe, just maybe, probably not, there is someone in Sweden that is worth his spot, that is worth being on a tier 1 Swedish team. But instead,
I think that's the problem, isn't it?
You have someone like Brollan, because he's stunk up tier 1 for so long now, that if you build a fucking Swedish team, you're stuck with the fucker anyway.
No, I think that's the whole, like, I don't think it's Brollan's fault the Swedish scene failed. I think
it's not.
think the issue is that they just
blaming him too much for that. That's fair.
Yeah, well, I'll temper it. But he's just not. The reason it's gone international is because they just, like, national teams just can't compete. They can't compete with the firepower, and that is, I think, NIP going international it's going to be a long road, but it opens up possibilities like, actually signing one of these up and comers when before they would be locked into signing like Maxter or something. Like at least now when these riflers, it was a Swedish guy, it was on NIF Academy, but now that they could do whatever they want. The world's the fucking oyster. Like, you can take any of these free riflers out, and there's someone from a Monty Apex, who might look at the partner slot, look at the money, look at the, look at NIP and think, you know what, fine. Like, I'm bored of CCTs. I'll join NIP. Like, I'll sack off my career and join NIP. And honestly, like, you can't really blame them for that. And I think the thing with NIP going international is that if you're Brollan or Reds or Config, you're shitting yourselves. Like, going into any transfer window, you're just like, fucking hell. Like, and I don't know what the contracts are. I don't know if it's hard to bench them. I imagine Brollan's on a lot of money. Like, it's probably quite hard to bench him. But
exactly. Egregious.
But if you're gonna, if you want to progress, you need a more reliable star rifler in this team. And we've seen enough of all of these guys. They've played enough maps in their career. Like, okay, Brollan's still young, whatever. I don't care. He's played millions of maps. We know their ceilings. And none of them have that ceiling. None of them have that ceiling for NIP to break into a consistent team. You need an Emma. Well, you're not going to get him. Like, don't get it twisted. But you need someone like that. You need one of these tier 2 stars, Boris, JL, whoever the fuck.
I don't want to know a reason. Because I can't be asked to get into it, in all fairness. We're not trying to be here for 2 hours. I just want a name. Who'd you get?
Who do I get?
One name. Don't go for
unlimited budget.
One name. Unlimited budget. One name.
Like 1-for-1 swap?
For Brollan, yeah. That would fit in this team. You could
for Brollan?
Yeah, that you could fuck Brollan off. I mean, if you want to take out one of the other pieces, but I just want one player. For Brollan, you fuck him off, you slot someone in.
My hot take? I'd keep Brollan on Res. I'd fuck off Config for Boris.
No. Ooh, okay. Okay, maybe we will get to the reason in a bit, because I was just going to go God Save the King and fucking slot Cypher in for Brollan.
But this is the thing. Brollan and Config in the same team? No. And I think Brollan's personality is easier to work with.
Probably.
Than Config. Well, I mean, he's more of an elite style guy, right? Like, he just shuts down when they're choking 14 free leads. But I think between Brollan and Config, like, Config is clearly more explosive, like clearly. But at the moment, I think,
is it like self-destructive, explode? Never mind.
You try. Shoehorn it in, little Jackson, man.
Well, look, if someone's having a drinking Malta, there's not much we can do.
Having drinks in Maltas in Malta, but it's just, I don't know. I think I see, like, people assume Boris is this crazy entry guy, and he is. Like, he will just run through smokes. Like, he's that type of aggression. But he does play a lot of lurky spots. Like, he's not the pack rifler really for Monty a lot of the time. So I don't know. I could see a Boris coming in and being a better version of Config with more room to grow, and Aleksib giving him the same guidance he gave Headtrick. Like, I'd like that, honestly. And I think Boris has that firepower that a lot of people, in NIP, maybe, we thought they did a long time ago, and they just never fulfilled that potential. Like, we've seen enough of these Freeze careers. Like, I don't want to see them anymore. Like, I'm just bored. They're always going to be this bottom half of the top 20 partner team with these free riflers. I just think they're stuck there. That's my take.
So let's
If anything, bring Hampus back. I think Hampus has more of a ceiling than these three.
Well, I
as a player,
Hampus in that team, the team gets instantly better. But let's talk about, we've given Brollan. You gave him more time than I did. I just kind of lost myself and had a bit of a rant. Sorry again, mate. Rez, we gave him some time. Let's quickly give everyone's favourite alcoholic some time. No, he's not drinking anymore, allegedly. Let's talk about Config, right? Like, because I'm really surprised to hear you say what you just said about Config, because you're a bit of a Config fanboy.
I'm a huge Config fanboy. Huge Config fanboy.
I'm not sure anymore, because a true fanboy would be defending him right now. Config's he's just not that guy, is he? Like, he I've said that a lot, but he was certainly that guy at one point. I don't know whether it was the 5th fight he got in that someone knocked some sense out of him, into him.
No, he's just never been consistent. He's never been consistent. You can see in 2016, in that Digging Test team, it's like, oh, Config or Mega, it's like, who's gonna be the next big thing. Then Config fucks up his Astralis interview, and they pick up Mega's can become the greatest team of all time. Like he's just...
I feel like you've missed some steps in their careers there, mate. But I'll let you carry on. Sorry.
But you know what I mean, though? Like, this is...
You missed off, mate.
I've rooted for...
obscurity with fucking optic fucking...
Yes. But Megas grew up. Like, Config, I've rooted for Config as long as I've watched CS. He's always been one of my favourite players. Like, he's just... His aim is just nuts. Like, that aggression is just... Like, it's everything you want for in, like, a favourite player to root for. And you watch him now, and it's like... He's just... People always know what's coming. Especially in this team, where, because Brollan and Aleksib are in the pack, like, he's lurking. Everyone knows. Like, he's still trying to run through red on Ancient. Like, that worked for, like, 3 months. And it made Astralis like the best Ancient team in the world. It was amazing. It was amazing just watching him run through red. It was really fun.
Was still
doesn't work anymore, does it? It doesn't work now that people have spent like more than 2 months on the map. Like I love Config. I really want Config to be the player I thought he was going to be when I was 16 watching him at Epicenter. Like I really want that. Like I really want that. I just, if I'm a GM, I don't see it. I'd stick Hampus back in for Config tomorrow, and then probably get Boris in for Brollan. Now I think about it. Fuck it.
Ooh. I quite like that. It's kind of...
Like, it's just... like, I think Config is just... He's at the point of his career where he's always going to have that talent that people are going to think that they can unlock some level of consistency. It's why the team is interesting to talk about, because all three of the riflers are the same thing. Like, if you're an IGL, you're looking at them and you're thinking, I can fix them. I can find that consistency that no one else can. And unfortunately, it's just never going to be there. And you're going to watch, especially with Config, like, he's going to pop off on a map and you're going to be like, there's a player there. Like you can't remove a player with that much potential. But I don't know. He's just, I don't see it. I don't see why NIP signed him to like a multi-year contract as well, when, like, that's just insane. Insane to me.
Have they ever announced that, by the way? Because do you remember at the time it was like...
No, he said it in ESL interview.
But did NIP ever announce?
No.
Because do you remember at the time it was just like fucking Config's standing in for this event.
Yeah, he's just still a standing.
Ampus just needs to fuck off for the weekend, can't do his job for a weekend, whatever, and fucking Config's here now. At some point then, I don't know when he said it to ESL, I mean...
Pro League. It was a Pro League interview with Stunner.
We get told things.
Funny.
we kind of knew straight away. Like, the bloke's just on a 2-year deal. Like, why?
Just insane. It's just
It
insane.
it's fucking insanity from that organisation. I mean, there's fucking shit org, but like, that's dumb even for them. That is dumb even for them.
But it's just, you can see why they were tempted. You can see why they were tempted. Like,
No, I can't. Like, maybe it's the Jackson in me.
not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
No.
Okay.
So you're telling me, right, a guy that only wasn't mid on Astralis for 3 months when no one had paid the new Buki Green map, right? A guy who clearly has behavior issues, which leads to attitude issues, which, like, he's just inconsistent in the server. He's got all these problems, and you're telling me that he's a good idea. Maybe at the time, he was
worth a gamble.
Available talent. However, right, when they've got someone like fucking S-Tag, who shouldn't be in this team either. I'm not saying S-Tag should be in this team. With Aleksib, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
But when you've got someone like S-Tag, who is the type of player you just sign on a fucking rolling 3-month contract, pay as you play kind of bullshit, that's exactly what Config should have been on. He should have been on 3 months, 6 months. If the team's doing well, I know what I was saying fucking 30 minutes ago if I really like Aleksib's fucking outlook or whatever. But we're at a point now where we've just had a major where all these tier 2 stars, these fucking JLs, these Cyphers, these Boroses, all these players have just had a fucking phenomenal tournament, and you could realistically go and get one for not much money. Like, you know, think about how much Ents paid for some Pius, which is fuck all. You could go and get one of these players from one of these teams, but instead, you got fucking Config, still with 18 months left on his deal. You got Brollan, still probably got 18 months left on a fucking deal. Like, I'm sorry, I've gone back in on Brollan again. I didn't need to do it that time. I feel bad.
Well, Sales deserve it.
Lovely guy.
A little bit, at least a little bit.
But Config, like, fucking hurts my brain. It still hurts my brain now. There's no need.
Yeah, and you know what? They had, like, I'm sure, you know, when he did that interview and he was just like, oh, all we trusted was the fucking strat book. Like, they're 14-3 up on the T side of Ancient, I think, and then they lose. They lose to Apex. And then Coffee just flames his IGL, and he finds the first journalist he can in the mix zone, flames his IGL. Like, how can you keep a player like that? Like, how? Like, how? He should be on his best behavior after what happened last year. He should be pristine for like 6 months. But because, you know, FaZe wanted him as a stand-in, Heroic used him as a stand-in, Nip signed him to a 2-year deal, he's just got away with it. He's got away with it, and he's returned, at least from the outside, it seems like he's still got that kind of, like, at times I've wanted to believe it was swagger. Now I think it's just not great, really, is it? Like, it's...
Only we had Christian slot roaming the halls of events, I'm sure we'd have it as well.
But
I think Config, unfortunately, I remember Foreign did a video about him at the time, talking about how Config will go down as one of the players.
It was an article. It's like an open letter, right?
Yeah, but he spoke about it in a video as well, in which he also had a 20-minute rant about violence, which is just really good foreign content, actually. But he was talking about how, of all the players, like, maybe Config is the one with the, like, I can't think his exact wording, but his potential just wasn't harnessed. His raw talent, his raw skill, like, Config could have been so much. But I think what we know now, halfway through 2023, however many years into his career, he's not that. He's never going to fucking be that. It doesn't matter whether it's his performances or what. He simply doesn't have the fucking personality for it. So get him the fuck gone.
Yeah, I mean, we've been harsh on these free riflers, and I think their performances have kind of pushed us into that. Like, they're kind of these, like, legacy tier 1 players, these legacy pre-COVID tier 1 players. And with CS2 coming, like, you don't have room for 3 legacy players. Like, these just pure global offensive players who are kind of living off of potential that is just never going to be realized. And that's the thing. I think there's going to be tough decisions for Nip coming up with because this team, like, as negative we've been about the Riflers, it is showing progress. Like, it is on a small uptick. Hedrick and Aleksib have shown good things at times. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they stuck with this team. Like, they're not a bad team. It's just that with these 3 Riflers, I think they're just doomed to be an okay team, and that's like, this is NIP. Like, it's NIP. It's a legendary organization. Like, as much as we don't like the owners, maybe, but in certain, like, the way they do PR, like, I've never seen a press manager be more of a bodyguard complex than NIP's one. Like, there's a lot of things not to like about NIP, but it's still NIP, man. Like, it's still the fucking ninjas in pajamas. They need to be winning games. They need to be winning more games, and they need to be getting into playoffs. Like, it's an iconic org. Like, it's I don't know. They're left at a hard place, and I don't know. I don't know where they go from here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new-ish roster with a question mark over a currently bench player as to how much he improves the team. I'd argue quite a lot. We've got a new game on the horizon. We all know what Nip did at the start of this game. Most overplayed fucking narrative in the world.
Your favorite?
I hate it. It's a legendary org. It might not be an org I like. It might be an org that over the last 10 years has done 1,000,001 fucking shitty things. But it's an org, maybe because of their history, and, we're all history merchants here. You've got a fucking degree in it. Like, I want Nip to succeed. I'm just not sure whether this is the team, because even with how they did in Rio, if they'd have gone out in the Challengers stage, I wouldn't have been fucking surprised. So the thing I think we should leave Nip on isn't, in the original plan for this episode, I wrote down, can this team ever win tournaments? I'm going to fucking answer that with a solid no. Nothing outside of fucking CCT anyway.
They even failed that.
Well, yeah. But so what I wanna leave this episode on is a different question. It's a fucking scale back question, which is a horrible place to be in. Is, can this team ever make playoffs of an IEM event? With the 16 format.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Do you know what? Yes, it definitely can. It's got enough pieces to win a few best of 3s and qualify for playoffs. It's whether they do it twice. I think they can if they stick with this team for like another 6 months. Look, I know there's not a lot of events in the second half of the year, and now there's no major. Like, there's probably going to be even less, even fewer, maybe. I don't even fucking know. Like, it's tricky. It's tricky to see consistency, and I just don't think there's going to be consistency. I think if I had to do a hard prediction, like one top 6, top 8 finish to end the year. Like, maybe they see one arena this year. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they see the arena IEM full. Maybe. Full, disgusting. Probably not, though, right? Because I think the killer there is what you said. And I was hoping you would say this, just a bit of a lead on, good from me. Whether they make it twice. That should not be a fucking question that we are asking. For me, we shouldn't be asking that about a partner org. I think the way these partner orgs should be that if it's a doubt if you're good enough to ever make a playoffs twice. I get there's these elite teams, but if we're gonna do this franchise bullshit, I want every team capable of beating every team, which is only true in the fact that, of course, it's fucking true. Like, it's not. It doesn't actually feel true. It doesn't actually feel like a team like Vitality G2 Heroic will consistently lose to these teams. I want it to be competitive. I don't think NIP is a competitive team. I like Aleksib's belief on them growing to become one. I really do. I think it's very different to what we get from a lot of people. It's very controlled in that respect. But nah, man, like this roster, like, this roster ain't ever gonna go anywhere because, like you said,
It's just so hard to get excited for it.
there's legacy players, and let's face it, right? Because I know you just looked at it at a half a season basis. I'm looking at it at a full fucking year. They would not make 2 playoffs at an IEM event in a year for NIP. That is unacceptable.
I can't believe we spent 50 minutes talking about this nothing of a team.
I know.
Insane.
And with that, that's been episode 6 of Deconstructed. Thank you so much for listening. For my hate ranting, Harry's kind of mediating. I don't know.
Half-hearted defense.
He's here. I guess he's been here for 50 minutes. He's now gonna go get drunk. I'm gonna go and cry. Wasted 50 minutes talking about fucking NIP. But I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, comment your thoughts on NIP. If they're positive, I might comment calling you an idiot. Potentially. It depends how bored I get. But yeah, stick around. We said we were going to talk about Cloud9. We didn't. We'll probably talk about them very soon. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. See you later.
No. See ya.